Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see if this works. Nope.
See if you can share.
Okay, let me try. Okay, great. Can you see my screen?
We see it, Lisa.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about a little bit today is how rare it is actually to be an entrepreneur in America. We are living in one of the greatest lands for being able to start our own business. We have so much potential here. But it's surprising to me how few people actually take advantage of it. So if you look at these numbers, there's 342 people in America, and of those, only 34 million have started a small business. Okay, that means only 10% of the population, or about 20% of the people who are actually working, have ever owned a business. But that includes people like freelancers and side hustlers. So of the 34 million businesses, 82%, which is over 28 million, are self-employed. And only 6 million, that's 1.8%, have ever brought on one person. So of those that do, most actually drop back to being self-employed because it's so hard to bring on another person. And one of the things I kind of wanted to point out today is that everybody on this call is doing a really good job. Like, if you think about the fact that you are one of less than 20% of people in America who has ever become a solopreneur, that's pretty impressive. So the average solopreneur revenue is 48,000. If you ever bring on more than just yourself and you get up to 1 to 9 people, the average revenue is going to be 250,000 up to 2 million. So it's really worth it if you can do it. But most people bring on one person and then they drop back down to zero, and it gets so discouraging. But you got to keep trying. If you have any of you ever read the book The E-Myth Revisited? That book is all about how this girl starts a pie business. She's making pies, but every time she tries to bring on someone, she doesn't have time to train them because she's already overwhelmed. And so she never trains them properly. They try to do things their way. It lowers the quality of everything. And then the problem is she just keeps coming back to working herself to death. And so the point of the whole book, though, is that you've got to train other people. You've got to pass on your knowledge. And once you get to a place where you're making good income, passing on that knowledge can help that other person speed up to your level so much faster. So one of the things that's a problem in general in financial services industry is other people keep training their own replacements. So the problem with training your own replacement is you don't want that person to get up to your level. So that's one of the really awesome things about WFG. They have a plan in place for you to want the people you bring in and train to reach your level, because you'll be able to get a generational override for 6 generations. So I've had a really hard time. I mean, the last few months, David and I have actually spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out where the business expansion guidelines have gone. So this compensation grid is from an old flyer, but here are some things, and I think that these are true. Tyson can double check me on these things. But WFG compensation is commission only with overrides up to 6 generations. At MD level, you're fully vested. So the agent code can be sold back to the company or to someone else, or the succession plan can be followed. There's a PDF for that. And at SMD level, you're eligible for 2 bonus pools, one for fixed business and one for variable business. The variable pool requires securities licensing. And so here's the compensation grid that I found from a while back. Let me see if I can actually make this a little larger. So it really matters if they're doing fixed business or variable business, because the first generation on fixed business, you're going to get a 12% override once you're both SMD or higher. And variable, the first generation will be 10%. So as you can see, this kind of flows down to your sixth generation, which gives you the ability to keep bringing in more people, and you still have access to bonus pools. So a couple weeks ago, Bill Mitchell did a whole webinar talking about this, which was really great because I hadn't seen it in a long time. And he came up with these slides. First of all, he went over his Elite Leader Tracker. And he is a real big proponent for the 12-week year where you only set goals per quarter. And his goal for his teammates is to do 12 units per quarter. So that's basically helping either, there's 3 ways that you can get a unit of activity. One is 2,000 points of business, one is a recruit, or 60,000 in AUM. So he's saying as long as you're helping one person a week in a 12-week year, you're hitting this. That's his elite producer. Then his next step up is the elite training associates. These people are actually helping elite producers in the field. And so let's say that one person, a trainer, goes out in the field with an elite producer and they write one 2,000 point case. Both of them would get 1 point of business, 1 unit of business. So this is kind of his goal, like he has it all written out so the people can see what goals they're going for. And then this is his income calculator. So he has only come out with the fixed business calculator so far. I emailed them and asked for the AUM calculator, but they did not send it to me. So I think because they're going to be probably doing that training in the next few weeks. But it's kind of cool here because you can see that first of all, whoops. I don't know if this is going to stay open. Transamerica pays more to the field than just 100%, which is really cool. So that flows down. So he's kind of built that into his whole spreadsheet down here, making sure that you see that just because you're at 65% as a senior marketing director is effectively 81.25%, which is important to know if you're trying to compare it to Edward Jones or somebody, you know. So as you type in here your production, it'll flow down to your total. Obviously, you'll make more money on your own, units of business. But the real goal is to eventually be building a team. And even though it's going to look slower at first, eventually, it's really the way to have residual income and, a business that works when you're not working. That's how to be a true business owner. So I'm hoping that, some of you actually watched that training. It was really good. Bill Mitchell always shares a lot of good information. But I didn't want to go too much into the spreadsheets and the numbers today. I just want to talk about the concept of how important it is to be a business owner and how we can help other people. So, one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of get some feedback from y'all. I'd love to kind of put together. I'm actually looking to recruit someone right now. And, people say being an entrepreneur is so risky. But if you look at Spirit Airlines, they shut down on Saturday. Hardly anybody had any advance notice on that. And 17,000 people lost their jobs. So Stephanie, who works with me, she's my receptionist, her sister's husband was an airplane mechanic, and he's, out of job. That's a really scary place to be if you've built your whole life around, building good income and things like that. But I feel like being self-employed or owning your own business is really the way to go if you want stability. which is kind of backwards of the way that most people think. So when I was listening to Bill Mitchell and he talked about having 105 direct SMDs by 2002, I was a little overwhelmed because that's amazing and wow, he's incredible and stuff. But sometimes it's like, it's important to like make our goals based off of where we're at. You know, let's say that 16% increase is typically the average of what you want to go for as a business owner each year. So what did you do last year? What would a 16% increase look like for you for this year? And I haven't done very much with the 12-week year. I think it is a good idea to break your goals into quarters. It's a good thought instead of just the whole year. And he also had the thoughts that you should be helping one client a week minimum. And he said that financial advisors are needed, and we have such a huge need for financial advisors that we only have about 1% or less right now in America of what could be helping people. So that's really important to know, because back in the day, whenever all those CSI shows came out, everybody went into college to be a CSI tech. Well, then what happened was it wasn't like the shows portrayed it to be. These people aren't out in the field doing all this fun stuff. They're sitting in a lab, waiting weeks for results to come back. So they weren't happy with the work they were doing. Plus the flood was, the field was kind of flooded with them. And then just a while back, everyone said, go to college to be a pharmacy tech. Well, then they flooded the market with pharmacy techs, which drove down the average pay for those people because it's all about supply and demand. So now the field's flooded with them and they can't even find jobs. So if you know the huge potential for what we're doing, we only have 1% or less of the financial advisors needed in America. That tells you we're never going to have a problem with demand. If you just keep educating yourself and becoming better at what you do and believing in what you do, your potential is kind of limitless. So what I wanted to kind of get is feedback from y'all on the things that are unique about WFG and how it's better than a lot of the places out there that you can start as an entrepreneur. I think one of the hugest things that we have is we can bring on people part-time and they can build into a career here, because a lot of people just don't make it in the first 1 to 2 years, and they don't have enough money to get by daily. Well, then they fail because they just didn't have enough time. So I was hoping that we could kind of, as a group, kind of think of some of the unique things about our business. What are things that you say to people that you have found are really unique about this business, or that you personally have found have been great for you?
Lisa, I think one thing that's good about our model is we have a agency model that's designed to create multiple other agencies, which other companies just don't have. Can you tell them a little bit about the struggles you've had, maybe just briefly with, you've had brought in other people and they've just taken your information, your training and your work, and they've just gone and essentially just became your competition, without, it just basically undercut you immediately, just taking your knowledge and then leaving. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, that is one of the most frustrating things about what I've done over the last, maybe 10 years, because I have brought people into the industry who are not licensed, helped them get licensed, helped them get trained. And at first I didn't have a contract with people. And so they would come in, learn everything from me. I take them from start to finish for 2 years, which is typically what it takes a person to get their feet under them in the insurance industry. And I showed them how to do it. I showed them how to meet with clients. I showed them how to, get contracted with carriers, how to run quotes, all the different systems. I mean, these things changed all the time, but, at the time, whatever was going, I'd show them how to run it, how to do everything. But then anywhere between the 3 and 5 year mark, they'd say, wait a minute, why would I work for your agency and get split commission when I can just go direct to the carriers and cut you out and start my own, just be on, self-employed. So then I was like, ugh, well, that's hard for me though, because obviously the first 2 years I'm doing an enormous amount of work, putting an enormous amount of time into these people, pouring everything into them with the long-term goal that I'm going to have a team, and then they leave. you know? And there's just so much to running an agency because you're dealing with all commissions and all the things that don't go properly, and there's a lot. So that's a really good point because WFG has a back office that handles all the commissions. I'm going to write that down because a lot of times the commission statements come out wrong, and you have to check all your client lists based off of what you're paid if the clients didn't come through. And they pay directly to your agents, so you don't even have to deal with all of that. So anyway, so then eventually I started working with an attorney, and he helped me build a whole contract for new agents coming on. And they agreed, they leave their clients behind if they go elsewhere. And I'm still going off the model of bringing people into the industry who don't know anything about insurance, training them, for the first 2 years, getting everything, all the knowledge, all the licensing, all the, all that it takes to educate someone, especially if they've never been in sales before, worked with clients before. But even then, did you know that in insurance, 90% fail? Okay, it's a very, very, the typical industry, okay, self-employed people fail 50% in the first 2 years and 90% in the first 5 years. Okay. Well, insurance is even higher. It's like, I think about 80 or 90% in the first 2 or 3 years fail. So insurance is a very high turnover rate industry. And I think some of that is because the model is we don't have mentors. We don't have people helping them along. If anything, people are almost afraid of the people they're training becoming their competition. So I do still bring people into the industry and train them and help them get licensed and start from scratch. And my hope is that they'll be loyal for all the effort and time I put in and bring them into an industry, especially in a state like Michigan, which is a bit depressed financially, and giving them opportunities for better income than you can typically have in this state. So for example, Saginaw specifically is very depressed. The individual income, and this is, I've read a million different charts, so this is all over the place, but we'll just say that the average American income is about anywhere from 60 to 80,000 a year, okay? But in Saginaw area, it's more like 45,000 a year. That's the average. So first of all, you already know that income in the area is a bit lower. But the problem is the potential of income in the area is very low because it used to be a manufacturing area and a lot of manufacturing jobs left the area. So the people left behind are just trying to make money off of what's left to do in the area, and there's just not a lot, And since a lot of people need jobs, the area business owners know it, and they just don't pay very well accordingly because supply and demand again, So if you can write your own check, you decide what your income is, the sky's the limit, and you just have to build yourself. If you think about the 10,000 hours, I'm not sure if you read the book that talks about you can become an expert if you really put your mind in for 5 years and really become a top expert in your field. You can do it in about 5 years if you really put in the effort to do it. And that brings us back to the sky's the limit here because we only have less than 1% of the financial advisors needed in this industry. Plus, we're not tied to our location. Like David and I both work with an enormous amount of clients that are not even in our state. So that gives you a lot more freedom than jobs like manufacturing where you have to go physically, work on parts and stuff like that. David, is there anything else that you wanted me to cover?
Yeah, I'd love to keep talking on this. So like there's two things that came to my mind. So on like what sets us apart, and I think both of them relate to kind of the compensation world. So in my early years, I would be at networking events and would meet someone else in the industry, and we would go and connect and grab coffee or whatever. And it led to me kind of asking about their comp grid. How does that all work? And most of our industry is spending so much time on what's that immediate paycheck look like. And so a lot of these insurance companies will say, hey, in year one, we'll pay you 100% or 90% or whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
and so a company and things maybe have changed. But there, I had talked to someone in maybe my first year in business who was with a company that rhymes with Northwestern Mutual. And he had explained in year one, I make 100%. In year two, I make 75%. And then from year three, for the rest of my career, my payout is 50%. And I'm like, do you realize how dumb that sounds? And he's like, well, what's your payout right now? And I'm like, 35%. And he's like, well, don't you hear how dumb that is? But I had explained I'm in my like first, we'll call it second year in business. I'm like, dude, the majority of my clients are not coming to me right now. It's going to take years for me to become competent in this business. It's going to take years for me to build a reputation. And so the lowest income earning years will be my first few years.
Wow, that's a good
How
point.
valuable is it that I can get in and be eating dog crap while I'm learning on people that may or may not even really be clients of mine? Your lowest competent and production years, you're wasting your best income potential. Fast forward 6 months later, post on LinkedIn, I'm excited to announce I'm now with New York Life. 6 months later, excited to announce I'm with XYZ Sales Corporation. So he was out of the industry in less than a year. But so many people come into come into the industry and hey, this place will pay me 80%, this place will pay me 82%. But it's like, is that year one? Is that for forever? Is that, on what types of business? Do you have quotas? I think so many people look so short term. And so I think this is such a
Wow,
great
that's an excellent point, Alex.
promotion
Yes.
and kind of comp structure where you can come in and like Lisa, you were just saying, I think it's so easy to tell someone, hey, you don't know anything about this industry. Guess what? I have that degree. I also knew nothing about this industry. It's going to take you a couple years, but you're going to learn on the move. But also, while you're learning, why would we be paying you the highest paycheck? Let's learn in the process. And as you get more competent, I relate it depending on if I'm talking to someone younger, I'm like, hey, it's like a video game. The entry levels to a video game are easier. Guess what? The barriers to kind of get promoted are going to be kind of smaller. And as time progresses, they're going to get more complicated, but your paycheck will then be getting bigger. So I think that's a huge thing. The other thing I was going to say that we haven't kind of talked about here is because we're coming on part-time and kind of building a team, uh, our upline is incentivized for us to be successful, incentivized for us to work together. Everywhere else that I interviewed in the industry, high turnover, high quotas, and dog eat dog culture. So I interviewed at Mass Mutual, and part of the interview process, they had explained, hey, when you come on board with us, we're going to recommend that you become an expert in one particular topic of financial services, whether that's estate planning, special needs trusts, pension maximization, one of those kind of topics. Why is that? Because anytime someone in the office comes to you and asks a question, you immediately get 50% of that business. I don't know if Tyson's on the call or not. I come to him, I'm probably proficient in, we'll call it 90% of the things that I do. That means I'm still literally coming and asking him about so many things. He would have a 50% split on probably 9 out of 10 accounts that I have on the books. Like, how cool and valuable is it that he's saying, hey, I'm going to invest into you and train you and mentor you in exchange. Hey, we're giving up a little bit on the backside, but he's one of the only reasons I'm still here. I would not have made it in this industry if it wasn't for someone that was incentivized to be with me, mentor me, hold my hand. I use that phraseology with some other companies when I interview. I said, hey, I'm a team guy. I'm not the solo guy. I kind of need my hand held for a little bit longer than, others people, but I'm a loyal guy. All of them said, you'll never make it in this industry. Go find something else because you're not going to be fit. Like this is alpha environment. Like you, so I've kind of rest my case there. I relate that, in my opinion, to how we collect like an advisory fee on an investment account. Tyson has a percentage valuation of my success. I have a percentage valuation of my client account success. So I think those things overlap. Um, they don't, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say. They go in tandem with one another, in my opinion. They correlate. So I think there's an invested interest for leaders to build a team, Lisa, like you were explaining. This is not you get trained for 6 months, we feed to the sharks and good luck. We have a lasting partnership that I think allows for us to learn over time. In 10 years, I'm going to probably have a new client case that I have no clue how to handle. And we have a structure in our company that will allow for me to feel comfortable to ask advice at that point in time.
Wow, yeah, that's excellent. How would you write that, Alec?
That's a great question. I have no idea. Um, I mean, I think you wrote it. Upline incentivized to help, yeah, help your team. You've kind of written it down already.
I really liked what you mentioned about the comp model. So I got into home and auto insurance just for a short season, and I found out that first off, as they bring you on, you typically make 50% on new business, but they really cut you off like step down on renewal. So a lot of the industry for home and auto, you're making 50% when you first walk in the door on new business, but then 35% on renewals or less, some 25%. So, like you were saying, if you're not always out there, writing new business, you're not getting paid very well. Um, yes, WFG does start our commissions a bit lower as you're training, but doesn't that make sense? I mean, it does make sense to me because you should be able to see a pay raise as you increase in knowledge. So yeah, I mean, you don't get rich quick here. You don't walk in the door with 100% commission. But I always think 100% of what, though? You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, you're going to have so much more business if you're more confident and you know what you're doing. You're helping people the right way with mentorship because most people just don't make it in the insurance world, especially because of the cutthroat industry we're in. It's pretty brutal, you know? And I just hear people running down each other and saying, just slandering each other, trying to get on top by running down their competition. And we don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? We just are who we are. And our model is strong enough. Our products are so much better than so much else that's in the industry. It's like we don't even have to run other people down. We just bring what we bring to the table and we're confident in who we are. So I'm going to put down that we have access to great companies and products. All right, anybody else got anything else that you see that has been great about this business?
Yeah, Lisa, I'll jump in here right quick.
Okay.
Kind of similar to Alex's point when I was in college learning about the industry, because I was never really exposed to this industry, never knew anyone, no family connection. But I've learned real quickly when talking to people in the industry that they focus on a lot of cold calls and quotas. And that's what kind of
Mm-hmm.
keeps companies' heads afloat, especially if you were to get into a company and then want to leave. Hey, well, you can't keep your clients, right? And
Mm-hmm.
focus on, hey, very transactional. And so that's one thing I had connected with Alec, realized that, hey, this is about relationships. This isn't for the short term. This is all thinking about the long term, not only in regards to planning, but the relationship, which really stood out to me. We're not just here to make a dollar, but we're here to have an impact and provide that service over time, which in part will lead you in getting more compensation over time, of course, too.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really good. So I recently read through this book again by Frank Betcher. It's called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. It's by far one of the best books I've ever heard on sales because it doesn't go with the typical sell people what you want to sell a model. It goes off of how do you serve people and help them get what they need It's an amazing book. If you haven't read it, it's amazing. Um, but it's he was like, he realized that if he wasn't keeping track of his numbers and how many people he talked to, he wasn't seeing how those numbers flowed out, because it's all, let's say that, you're not very good, and you only close 20% of the business. Okay, well, you got to get a lot of numbers out there so you can get the money you want if you only close 20%. But the more you do it, experience, you're going to get better until you're up to maybe 80% closure. And now, the more people you talk to, way more money you're making. One of the things that Frank was saying, though, is that he realized when he's in a warm market, he sells a lot more because the trust is already there. Second of all, the people he talked to the first and second time, he made way more closure of helping those people. The people he went back to 6 and 7 times, he only had like a 10% closure of ever helping them. So he said, stop wasting your time on the people you've already talked to 6 times. I mean, leave them there, they're there, it's fine. Go after new people. And I think that our model has a really good, keeping you in the warm market. Staying in warm market with the top 25 list and referrals. Okay, well, I think that's pretty much all I had for today. So I'm going to stop sharing. If anybody thinks of anything else, let me know and I'll add it to my list, okay?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. This was good. I hope this was a reminder for all of you guys. Um, you know, I think a lot of the things that we talked about for me personally remind me of why I'm grateful to be in business. One of the things that was last kind of talked about there is we can constantly obviously be meeting new people and building a new list, but how grateful I am that I don't have to worry about quotas. And when I get into kind of, times maybe like now where I don't have a whole lot of new activity going on, it helps me to be reminded, who am I reaching out to? Who am I just connecting with? And just continuing to build relationships. And when I focus less on I need to go make new commission, I need to just go make new friends, it makes this business a lot more comfortable, a lot easier. And so if you feel like maybe, hey, I don't know where the next kind of couple pieces of business or relationships are coming from, I'd encourage you to just be reminded of, we last talked the last couple of weeks about why we're here, what we're wanting to do. It is not that difficult, and it is very easy and comfortable to just go and make new friends. Simple as that. And business will start to follow after them. So, yeah, thank you for sharing, Lisa. And we'll get back together here in a week. Talk to you guys later.